Hello, everyone. My name is Jackson Allen, and I read the book Fit to Compete: Why Honest Conversations About Your Company's Capabilities Are the Key to a Winning Strategy by Michael Beer. Today, I'll be going over four things: the overview of the book and the three main points in which I found the most valuable. These things are the power of honest conversations in action, and what if honest conversations were the norm? Now we will get into the overview. The book Fit to Compete has a goal of addressing organizational silence, which can cause poor effects on a company's strategic objectives. In this book, it touches on when employees cannot speak up about the truths about what is happening in the company. When this happens, senior leaders just don't hear what is needed to be heard about the company's overall fitness to compete. When employees aren't able to speak truthfully to their superiors, it causes a lack of trust to their leader, and because of that lack of trust, employees are not as committed to change and the success of the overall business. This book addresses these issues, and I will be talking about three things that I found valuable which help combat this issue, starting with the power of honest conversations. This part of the book starts by saying why most transformations in an organization fail. The book Fit to Compete says nearly every organization, whether private, social, or governmental, is grappling with the huge strategic challenges, often with a need to reimagine its very purpose, identity, strategy, business model, and structure. Most of these efforts to transform will fail. And in most cases, they miss the mark not because the new strategy is flawed, but because the organization can't carry it out. This part of the book then goes on to talk about how a lot of organizations have the same flaw of organizational effectiveness. It has a flawed strategy or failure to align the organization and management process with the strategy and values. This misalignment is the root of causing issues in business like unclear values, poor coordination, inadequate capacity for honest communication, inadequate leadership development, and failure by leaders to listen and learn. To combat these issues and improve as an organization, the book talks about how the only way to know what to do and how to improve is to have conversations with the employees directly affected by the decisions and make them feel more involved with the process, which allow for them to look for more problems and ways to correct them. A way to go about this is called the strategic fitness process. The strategic fitness process, or the book also calls it SFP, is designed to have open and honest conversations about the organization's effectiveness. To start the SFP, it starts with a senior team developing the business's strategic direction, and then they appoint a task force made up of 8 of the best leaders to interview 100 people who know the challenges at hand. The leaders will describe the strategy to the task force so that they can explain it to the people they interview. The task force asks the interviewers their straight up feedback on the strategy and the strengths and weaknesses the company may have and while implementing the strategy. The task force takes what they learned from the interviews to the leaders, then an action plan is formed, identifying barriers and how the company can become better overall. This is a highlight I took from the Power of Honest Conversations part of the book, and next I will talk about a highlight from the second part of the book called Honest Conversations in Action. In this part of the book, it talks about how trust is a crisis in our world today and how the general trust in things like business, government, and media have significantly declined. There was a survey done with managers in 30 different corporations, and roughly half of the people under them do not trust their leaders. The highlight of this part of the book is that hierarchy undermines trust. When there is a hierarchy, it shows that there is someone superior to you and that you're supposed to trust them. To build trust throughout the hierarchy, the person who is above the other needs to take the initiative to have honest and vulnerable conversations. They need to make the first move because lower people are already vulnerable. After all, they feel as if their job is lesser compared to the person above them in the hierarchy just because they simply have a higher title than them. The book says that this will build that trust and show that you are vulnerable and open and receptive to the person below them by having honest and open conversations. Allowing the person below to speak and give feedback on how they would implement new strategies that are presented to them. The book describes how it is hard for superiors to open up. It is hard for superiors to be vulnerable because of resources, power, money, autonomy, and control. The book quotes for business leaders the less need for the resources of others, correspondingly little motive to accept vulnerability. This explains that with business leaders, it is hard to accept vulnerability because they think they already have all the resources and information they need and don't need anyone else's input or help. Superiors in a business rarely make themselves vulnerable and open to making conversation and accepting feedback on helping with the implementation of strategy. The book says that this type of manager or business leader is a very rare breed of business person today. Due to this, companies have to spend millions of dollars on leadership's training, and by using the SFP, like mentioned in the last point, and putting the open conversations to action, can nullify the hierarchy, thus creating a more cohesive, trustworthy, I guess, workplace, so to speak, um, and be able to work out issues that are at hand within the business. The last highlight of the book I thought was important is if honest conversations were the norm. In this part of Fit to Compete, it talks about stewardship and truthful conversations. It says that every business is vulnerable to deterioration and that this thing commonly goes unnoticed, and this could possibly be a sign of failure of stewardship. It talks about how someone is responsible for protecting a business's core values, and those people who are responsible for protecting the core values are allowing these values to be lost, thus causing the deterioration of the business. In the book, it says a board of a business can become better stewards of a business when honest conversations are regular. Organizational silence can prevent a business from learning in a timely way. This can show how leaders of the business um, may undermine the effectiveness the business actually has with the values and the direction it's going. If a company wants to have sustainable growth, it needs to have cultural and moral purpose. And doing that, you have open, honest conversations. But along with those things, something the employees need to contribute to the long-term success and sustainability is by the leaders addressing the socio-emotional health. This is something employees desire. It is easier for a business to simply talk about, the tough business goals that they're going through at the moment and how to overcome it than it is to similarly talk about socio-emotional like leadership culture and the unethical activities in which could sink a business just as fast as the tough decisions could. So this is saying basically that focusing on stuff like leadership culture and unethical activities is just as important as defining the business's goals and outcomes, because finding those leaders and developing the culture can overall identify new business goals and how to overcome barriers easier. And so lastly, the rating of the book, I would give it a 9 out of 10 for the, I gave it such a high rating because I think it is a good book to read. It is a good tool to use in the tool belt you have, because if some of us go into management positions right after college, and possibly taking this book, having an open conversation, being vulnerable to someone below you, it could spark an idea, and it could just show how you can add value if you take an idea to a person above you, and it could just basically show how you're valuable by addressing some of these issues and just using it throughout your career. I will say I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 just for the fact that basically all the issues come down to having, you know, an honest conversation. I think it was pretty self-explanatory with the issues that it was addressing, that just basically be open, be, you know, be straight up and talk about um, what the issues are and how it can improve them. So that is simply why I don't think I'd give it a 10 out of 10, just because, you know, obviously every solution was just having a honest conversation about the business issues. So that was my book, Fit to Compete, and I hope you enjoyed, and hope you have a Merry Christmas.